Welcome back to Hard Hat Chat, the podcast where we don't just build structures, we dig into what's shifting in the business of building. I'm Justin Smith, CEO of Contractor Plus, and with me as always is Gerritt Bake, CEO of Build Pro.
Always glad to talk the tough stuff, especially when it affects everybody's bottom line.
Today we're talking about a growing trend. Subcontractors refusing to accept what used to be standard general contractor terms. For many GCs, that's a shock, but for subs, it's becoming a necessary move.
It's a shifting balance of power, and some old school terms just don't work anymore when pressure's high from every side.
Let's start with the big picture. The construction industry in 2024 through 2025 and going into 2026 is facing three major macro trends. First, labor shortages. Many skilled trades are retiring or exiting, and fewer young people are entering. Second, cash flow pressure. Delayed payments and slow releases of retainage mean subs are often financing work themselves until payments come through. Third, rising costs, materials, compliance, regulations, overheads, making margins thinner and risk heavier. These pressures make many of the traditional GC contract terms unsustainable from a sub's point of view.
Exactly. Let's break down what GCs often expect: retainage, slow payment cycles, large paperwork, tight scheduling, rigid scope changes, and why subs are pushing back.
First on the list, cash flow and payment delays. For decades, many GCs have held back payments or delayed them while waiting for progress billing from owners. But that means subs pay guys, materials, overhead while waiting 30, 45, 60 days or more to get paid. Some contractors report as much as 82% now face payment waits over 30 days.
That's brutal, especially for a small subcontractor with limited capital. Holding up payment is basically making them float the project.
Right. The subs are done floating a job for months while the GC manages their cash flow. Many now demand faster payment cycles or they won't bid at all. Second, retainage. It's long been industry standard to hold back a percentage until final completion. But with inflation, rising costs, and unpredictable schedules, that's huge risk for subs.
That's basically financing the project while risking that issues outside their control, like delays, weather, supply shortages, bite them before they ever get their money out.
Third, unpredictable labor and material cost escalation. With labor shortages and rising material costs, many subs don't want to lock in fixed price terms under GC contracts. If costs go up while they wait for payment, they lose.
Makes sense. Imagine you buy materials this week, but project payment arrives in 2 months, and meanwhile, lumber has jumped 15%. You ate the difference.
Exactly. And fourth, abuse of scope changes, change orders. Some GCs expect subs to handle extras, contingency, change orders, but with tight paperwork and delays. Many subs are saying, no thanks. The standard contract terms make subs bear too much risk. And in a tight labor material market, risk translates directly to possible collapse. Let's drop a fictional but real feeling case study to illustrate. Meet North Star Electrical, a small subcontractor in Ohio. 2025 was rough. They took on a GC job, residential community wiring under standard contract, 10% retainage, payment 45 days after milestone, fixed labor and materials costs. They did the work, delivered materials, passed inspections. They invoiced, but the GC delayed payment. Meanwhile, lumber prices rose, steel tariffs hit, and subcontractor had to pay vendors up front. After waiting 60 days with no payment, owners threatened lien. Payroll due. They had to borrow on credit. Cash flow tanked. Next bid, they refused the GC standard terms, added shorter payment window, partial upfront payment, or release of materials cost, reduced retainage, contingency clause for labor and material spikes. GC balked, projected bidding delays, sub-walked. They went solo with smaller residential clients on fairer terms and protected their business.
That's not defiance. That's survival.
Yes, what once seemed like overprotection by the GC is now seen as risk transfer, and many subs are rejecting that transfer. Another major factor, labor shortage and demand for trade work is hot. With fewer skilled workers, good subcontractors have more leverage. When subcontractors can pick and choose, they demand fair terms because they might have another offer waiting.
It's supply and demand, but for labor. When demand for quality subs outpaces supply of work with good terms, the power tilts towards subcontractors.
Data shows workforce shortages and high demand for skilled trades remain a top concern for many contractors in 2025. That gives subcontractors leverage they know they're needed, and they also know they don't have to swallow unfair terms to get work.
Also, the added compliance, documentation, and risk environment, insurance, permits, safety regulations, all are rising. For a subcontractor, if the GC's contract does not protect them properly, any mishap means their business can be on the hook.
Exactly. Many subcontractors now demand clearer scope definitions, liability protections, fair compensation for compliance overhead, or walk away. Risk used to be dispersed, now it's concentrated, and subs are staring down the barrel.
So let's summarize real reasons subcontractors are rejecting GC terms in 2026. Severe cash flow pressure due to payment delays, retainage policy that holds too much risk, rising material and labor costs creating unpredictable margins, labor shortages giving subs leverage, compliance and regulatory risk increasing overhead and liability, change order abuse and unpredictable scope changes, desire for fair, sustainable business rather than constant uncertainty.
And on top, subtler but powerful, respect. Subs want to feel like partners, not vendors. They don't want to be squeezed at every turn.
Now, let's talk about what general contractors need to do if they want to continue working with good subs, because walking away isn't always the answer for GC either. Here are some terms and practices that attract subcontractors in 2026. Shorter payment cycles, 15 to 30 days instead of 60 to 90, partial payment upfront or deposit for materials, retainage reduction or staged retainage release, flexible change order policies with fair markup, clear scope definitions and change order transparency, open communication on cost escalation, materials or labor, trust and fair treatment. Subs want respect. Treat your subs like teammates because without them, your project doesn't build. And honestly, even from purely financial perspective, if you build trust and manage payment properly, you'll attract better subs who bid fair and deliver quality.
We've only begun scratching the surface. In part two, we'll look at real data on subcontractor refusals and bid walk-offs, contract clause red flags subs increasingly reject, ways for TCs to redesign contracts for 2026 economy, tips for subs to protect themselves while staying competitive, a sub-friendly contract framework checklist. Next part's going to be heavy with value for both sides, general contractors and subcontractors. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. And hey, if you're a contractor looking to scale your business without adding more chaos, check out Contractor Plus. It's the only app you'll ever need to run your business from start to finish. CRM, estimates, invoices, payments, plus powerful integrations like QuickBooks Online, Zapier, Authorize.net, and ABC Supply. Go further, win more, and work smarter with Contractor Plus. Welcome back to Hard Hat Chat. In part one, we laid out why many subcontractors are pushing back: payment delays, retainage, risk, escalating costs, and shifting leverage. Now we go deeper: what this trend looks like in 2026 and how both subcontractors and general contractors can adapt or lose.
There's a wave, and if you don't surf it, you'll get wiped out by it.
First, let's talk data. Studies and industry reports show that late payments and delayed retainage release remain a huge problem for subs. For instance, a construction industry payment delay report noted that payment delays, including retention holdback release delays, cause serious cash flow strain for subcontractors, often pushing margins and solvency to the edge.
I've heard horror stories of subs waiting 60, 90, even 120 days for payment while materials and labor bills stack up. Meanwhile, supply costs rise, crews need to be paid, and lenders don't care about we're waiting on payment.
Retainage, the practice of holding back a portion of payment until completion or post inspection, is meant as a protection for the owner. But for subcontractors, that's often the difference between a healthy business and financial stress. Many subs in 2026 are refusing to accept traditional retainage terms unless there are fair safeguards like partial upfront payment for material costs or shorter retainage release windows.
It's fair. Holding 5 to 10% of their pay until the entire project is complete, especially when permits, inspections, and other trades hold up the final sign off, means subs are carrying all the risk. And with inflation or wage increases, that's a loaded gun pointed at small businesses.
Another risk skyrocketing now: unpredictable material and labor cost escalation. With supply chain issues and labor scarcity, a job estimated in January can easily cost 10 to 20% more by April. A subcontractor locking in fixed price terms under old GC contracts eats that difference. That's why many subs in 2026 are insisting on cost escalation clauses or refusing to take fixed price jobs, especially when material procurement or schedules are uncertain.
Locks that pay in the future but ask for materials now, that's a bad bet. No one should gamble their business on outdated contract terms.
Let's top contract clause red flags that subcontractors today avoid like open trenches. If you're a GC, listen up. If you're a sub, watch for these: long retainage periods or undefined release timelines, delayed payment cycles, 60 plus days after billing, fixed pricing without escalation or contingency allowances, vague scope definitions or open-ended change order policies, burdensome compliance or documentation conditions that leave the sub paying for delays or external factors.
When subcontractors see those in a contract in 2026, they walk or demand changes. Either way, the old playbook is collapsing.
For GCs who want to stay competitive and keep reliable subs, here's a modern subcontractor-friendly contract framework. Short payment windows, net 15 to 30, upfront or material cost deposits where possible, 5% retainage max, ideally released in 2 stages, post-completion and post-inspection, within 30 to 60 days. Clear scope with documented change order process, escalation language for material or labor price shifts, transparent communication and documentation for change orders or delays, fair indemnity and risk clauses. Don't push subs to carry all risk.
Simple, fair, and realistic. Treat subcontractors like partners, not financial backers.
Let's give a real-world inspired example. A mid-sized GC in the Midwest in 2025 tried to push standard terms: 10% retainage, 60-day payment cycle, no escalation clause. Their usual electrical sub pushed back. The GC refused. Sub walked away. The GC scrambled, had to rebid at a higher price, lost margin. Project delayed. Client unhappy.
Now, GC offers better terms: quick pay for labor, upfront for materials, retainage at 5%, payment on completion. Sub said yes. Owner doesn't pay more, project moves smoothly, sub stays loyal, everybody wins.
That scenario will become more common. GCs who adapt will win. Those who don't will lose subs and profits. On the flip side, let's talk how subcontractors can protect themselves without burning bridges. Always read the contract, check payment terms and retainage clauses. Add material cost deposits or progress draws when possible. Request escalation language if project length is long or materials volatile. Require clear change order documentation and fair compensation. Keep your own records, photos, invoices, logs to defend your claims. Vet the GC history. Don't just trust past relationships.
Subcontractors who enforce fair terms don't look greedy, they look smart, and they survive.
Now, the bigger shakeup in 2026 is mindset. For decades, subcontractors accepted difficult contract terms as industry standard. But with labor shortages, demand, and rising awareness, subs are realizing they have leverage.
Especially those with specialized skills, good track records, and flexibility. They're not just bidders, they're valued partners. and you treat partners differently than vendors.
What about project financing and payment structures? Public sector contracts sometimes require payment bonds or compliance with acts like the Miller Act to guarantee payment to subs and suppliers. For private projects, subs are more wary if the GC's cash flow is tight. They don't want to be last in line.
Payment bonds, escrowed retainage accounts, they give subs confidence.
But they're only useful if all parties honor them. Transparency is key. The last big trend: alternative subcontracting models. Some subs are skipping GC layers by working direct with owners or forming small joint venture groups. Others refuse big project terms and focus on smaller private projects with simpler contracts.
This fragmentation could reshape the subcontracting market. More small, nimble crews, direct owner relationships, and fewer long, risky GC sub chains.
It might hurt old school GCs, but it forces the industry to evolve. All right, before we sign off, here's a checklist for 2026 ready subcontractors. Review and negotiate payment terms before bidding. Include material or labor cost deposits or progress payments. Limit retainage percentage or negotiate release timelines. Add clause for cost escalation on long projects. Document all change orders strictly. Keep records of materials, labor, photos, communications. Vet GC payment history and financial reliability. Avoid contracts that push all risk to you.
And a bonus, build relationships with multiple GCs and clients. Don't depend on one. Diversify to protect your business.
Final thoughts: the industry is shifting. Subcontractors are no longer forced to just take what's given. They have power, leverage, and they're using it to protect their businesses.
If you're a GC, adapt. If you're a sub, protect. If you're both, good luck, because you've got to dance carefully.
We appreciate you listening to Hard Hat Chat. To everyone out there building, bidding, negotiating, and surviving, stay sharp, stay fair, and stay in control.
And if you're drafting a contract today, ask yourself, would I sign this if the roles were reversed?
If not, it's time to rewrite it. Hard Hat Chat. We'll see you next time.